What's up, guys? It's Jake here from Chief Live Gaming. Today, coming to you with a Tactica video. Haven't talked tactics for a while on this channel, and I really want to dive back in and continue kind of my theme of talking about assault armies and how to be a little more successful, or at least have a better chance when you bring an assault army to the table. So what I did was set up a couple models on my gaming table, and I took some pictures, and I just kind of want to overlay them and talk kind of through a few basic things with you guys, and hopefully this will help some newer players out or some more inexperienced players with assault armies. So we're going to start with a couple things, but I first real quick want to mention that obviously on the right side of the table we have a line of cultists. Now that's not going to stand much of a chance to what you see on the left side of the table, but those are just placeholders to represent the line of the enemy if we're doing this kind of deployment. So keep that in mind. All right. So I want to talk about a couple kind of bullet points in this video. So the first thing that I want to talk about are why assault armies can be good and what they're good at. So obviously they're really good at assault. They're really good at getting in close and dealing damage to your opponent. They're also extremely good at board control. So board control is something that is super important especially in Maelstrom of War, but in a lot of different scenarios. It's hard to kind of come back against somebody that is just basically trapping you in your deployment zone and controlling the entire rest of the board, racking up objective points, this kind of stuff. It's very hard to come back from something like that. So don't underestimate the importance of board control. It's something that I just want to kind of throw out there. Very, very important. So when you hear people talking about assault armies, it's very easy to get caught up in the negativity surrounding assault armies. You'll hear things like, you know, the assault is dead, assault armies are weak, the assault phase is broken, this kind of stuff, which is, you know, opinion. And whether or not assault is you know, very good or not, it's definitely not quite as strong as, like, say, bringing a shooting army in most cases. But there are ways you can use it and be successful with it. So we're going to talk about those now. The first thing that everybody generally starts with is list building. So when you're building a list for an assault army, you really need to commit to the assault. It's hard to bring a few assault units and expect it to do very well. The thing that usually happens is you end up with kind of a split force. So you're bringing 4 or 5 units for assaulting, or 3 or 4. Those will get up there in your opponent's face. They're going to be shot down first, and then the rest of your army, which is slower, will come up, and then your opponent can kind of pick off that line, and you're not really a unified front, right? That's pretty simple to understand. You want to make sure that you are holding that unified front, and by committing with the assault army, you can see how easy it is really to really overwhelm your opponent. So let's look at this list that I have here just as an example. Now this is a Khorne Daemonkin army, but again, you know, you can use these tactics with pretty much any army, any assault based army that you want to bring. Just kind of substitute out things for your own models here. So list building is tricky, but the main thing that I look for in my units above everything else when I'm making an assault army is speed. If I can get 12-inch movement, I want it. That's coming in the army. So things like Mauler Fiends, which are siege crawlers, beasts, cavalry, you know, Thunderwolf Cav, Blood Crushers, that kind of thing, extremely valuable. I try to bring as much as I can, and you'll see why I do that in a second. The Bloodthirster is a great thing to have. Demon Princes, this kind of stuff. They're flyers. They can move 12. And start them on the table, guys. Don't put them in reserve. Don't deep strike things in. Start everything that's fast like this on the table, and you'll see why this is so beneficial when we get a little further into the video. Just trust me. So you're bringing really fast units. You're starting them on the table, and your opponent is looking across the table and seeing, you know, a pretty threatening looking army. But keep in mind, you're getting a 12-inch movement. It is very, very easy to underestimate how far that is in 40K. So if you're deploying at the line, you're 24 inches apart. Say you don't even get to go first, which is kind of ideal. I'm not going to go too deep into that because we could talk all day about trying to go first or second. But say your opponent goes first, moves up a little bit with some of their units, 6 inches, right? So now there's an 18-inch gap between whatever is directly across from it. If you're moving up 12 inches, you only need a 6-inch charge. That's below average. You're going to get that most times or a lot of the time. So it's very easy to close the gap on your enemy without them really being ready for it. That's that power of that 12-inch movement. Things like fleet, things like move through cover, also very valuable. So look through your army, try to find these types of bonuses. So once you've got your list kind of going, you kind of want to mix and match your units kind of across the field like I've done. So it is very powerful to kind of stack one flank or stack and wedge through a certain piece of your opponent's army. And if you see an opportunity to do that, feel free to go for it. But generally, I like to kind of make a line here, like you see, a nice diversified line, and just push forward with a giant wave, a giant unified front. And this will really surprise most of your opponents. Unless they've seen it before and played against it before, they're just like, oh no, what can I do? And the main idea with this is target saturation. So let's move on to talk about that. There's a few ways that we can go about looking at this, but what I want to kind of mainly talk about is target priority. So let's think about some assets that maybe a Space Marine player will have. They might have something like las cannons, multi-meltas, this kind of stuff. This is really scary weaponry, right? We don't want to get shot by that, but it's going to happen. So it's important to remember that this is a fixed resource. In most games, they're not going to have a abundance of this high damage weaponry. They're going to have a kind of sprinkled in. So when it comes to using that weaponry, they're going to have to make a choice, right? It's very important. They make a choice at what to shoot it at, and from there, whether or not the dice want to cooperate with you or with them is kind of irrelevant. But we want them to have so many choices that they don't know what to do. Target priority, target saturation. So we move up this huge front, and all of a sudden there are like 6 units that are going to charge you, are in charge range next turn. You have to deal with these threats, right? Okay, las cannon time. What do I shoot at? Oh man, there's so many things to shoot at. It's not a clear choice. We want them to have a lot of choices with everything they do, because then it's a lot easier for them to make a mistake. It's a lot easier for you to capitalize on that mistake and come out ahead. So these small little mistakes can mount up, and they might just kind of make a knee-jerk reaction and decide to shoot at something that maybe isn't the best option at the time. So from that idea, I want to move in and talk about one more thing related to target saturation. People seem to be very afraid to lose units, and I think this is a natural thing. They don't want to bring certain units because they're very easy to kill. Let's use the example of Blood Crushers, right? So a lot of people have a negative attitude with Blood Crushers because there's toughness 4, which means that they are very vulnerable to instant death from high strength weaponry, right? So even strength 8 is going to remove a Blood Crusher with a wound because it's instant death. But if you think about Blood Crushers in combination with everything else in an army like this, if they are getting shot at and getting removed, you are saving a lot of other very valuable units with that. So everything's kind of a trade-off, a balance. So every shot, we're talking about this limited resource again, these high-strength weapons, that goes into one of your units is not going into a different unit. And every unit is very important and very valuable, but losing one of them doesn't all of a sudden mean that you're going to crumble, that your strategy is ruined, because you have all of these these backups, these fail safes. Every unit is very strong in the assault. So by losing a couple models from the shooting phase, you're just drawing a lot of fire away from the rest of your army. And that's why I love to start the Bloodthirsters, my Demon Princes, right on the table, because your opponent's like, oh man, I need to get some wounds on this guy, right? And they underestimate things like Jink, things like intervening model saves, things like Demon invuln saves. It's very easy for them to try, like, okay, I'm gonna put this unit into the Bloodthirster, see what happens. Okay, I did a wound. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna put one more unit into it, see what happens. I'll do 2 more. And then they get to the point where it's like, oh no, I've wasted a lot of shooting at this guy. He's still not dead. Do I want to continue to shoot at him, or do I want to try to take something else out? And then there's that choice again. We're trying to keep making choices, force them to keep making choices rather. And all of a sudden their shooting phase is over, and you're like, oh no, I did not do enough damage. That did not go well. So that's really conducive to that kind of a situation. Starting Bloodthirsters on the table, starting Demon Princes on the table, big units like that can definitely be taken out. But even if that Bloodthirster dies, they're going to have to put a lot of shots into him, and the rest of your army is going to be looking pretty darn good. I mean, ideally, we don't want our Bloodthirster to die, right? But again, it's all about that fixed resource. They have to put the shots somewhere. So by giving them so many targets they don't really know what to do, that's what you want. I think I've talked enough about that. So what I want to show you guys is a picture of this army if I was going to move it up on a first turn. So just to give you an example, so there's a rough 12 inches of movement forward and kind of holding that line. Look at how far up we are, and look at how much board control we have. That's crazy. Obviously there's going to be terrain, there's going to be objectives, so we might not have the whole front exactly 12 inches forward. Some things will be further back, further forward, but in general we're going to have dug in really fast and really quickly forward into these key points on the board, and maybe units that are more vulnerable can hide out in that scattered terrain, in that ruined building, to get the cover save, making them even better. And again, forcing your opponent to decide, well, how do I deal with all of these things? Because each thing in itself is a pretty big threat. How do I deal with them? What do I do? So that's what I want you guys to think about. We can talk about, in this example, what the rest of the army is doing, just very briefly. You'll notice that there's no troops or anything shown. Now, if you had, say, like groups of cultists or groups of bloodletters or your basic troops, you could kind of put those where the Hellbrutes are in this photo. So kind of in the back lines, ready to move forward. They're holding on back objectives. They are ready to move in and plug gaps in your lines, and if you take heavy losses in a certain part of the field, they can move in and fill those spots in, because they are a little bit slower, but they're going to make it up there, right? And they're going to be pretty safe because of all the stuff that's in front of them. You want some long-ranged assets, the Soul Grinder, the Skull Cannon, things like that. Those are hiding out in the back, but you really don't want to overdo it, especially if you're talking about a lower points game. You might even want to eliminate the long-range support in favor of bringing that, say, like a Demon Prince or something, into this list that you're seeing. You can also, this is again more of a Khorne Daemonkin thing, but start Bloodletters in reserve and deep strike them in. So you can throw some banners onto your Blood Crushers. That's going to give you that deep strike accuracy that you're looking for, and bring those Bloodletters in key points of the field and not worry about scattering. You can get them exactly where you need them. You're building up Blood Tithe. You can summon things with more accuracy. This is something I really like to do. Put banners on the Blood Crushers and try to keep the Blood Crushers back just a little bit, a little more safe. Make sure they're in that cover. Make sure they're in the terrain, hidden from some weaponry, and use that banner to help you bring in reinforcements. So hopefully this has been sort of an informational video for some of you guys. I know it might be pretty rudimentary for a lot of players, but I just like to get my thoughts out and to kind of help out wherever I can. So this is something I have a good experience with, and something that I'm really comfortable with playing this style of an army, and this is just what works for me. And if it works for you, let me know. If you have comments, criticisms, suggestions, drop them down in the comments below. I will take a look at them. If you think that my strategy is absolutely awful, let me know. We'll talk about it, and we'll go from there. Now remember, guys, it's going to be hard to win against like a castled up Tau with an assault army, so keep that in mind. But you can do things to stack the deck in your favor. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye now. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you want to see more, please consider subscribing to my channel. I do battle reports, tactica, painting tutorials, all kinds of stuff. And if you want to get even more involved, you can check out my website, chieflivegaming.com. There's a big gallery there. You can vote on polls to interact with my battle reports and all kinds of other good stuff. So I hope to see you guys there, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye now.